So many people follow fad diets. They see what their friends are taking, they see what's on Instagram, they see what's on TikTok, and they go buy it. And it's still generic, one size fits all, mass market kind of solutions. There's just been this general lack of innovation in the space, whereas we have all of this new access to health data. So why aren't we using it?
Welcome back to the Fitt Insider podcast. I'm your host, Joe Veneri. Today I'm joined by Rachel Soper Sanders, co-founder and CEO of Rootine. In this episode, we discuss the company's approach to precision nutrition. Rachel details the shortcomings of the unregulated supplement industry. Plus, we talk about removing barriers between wellness, nutrition, and healthcare. Let's get into it. The Fitt Insider podcast is brought to you by Jack Taylor, our exclusive PR partner. More than just PR, they're creative storytellers and brand builders who actually understand the health and wellness industry. Learn more and get in touch at jacktaylorpr.com. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to Fitt Insider. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, lots to chat about. The kind of best place to start maybe is with a quick introduction, both about you and what you're working on at Rootine.
Yeah, of course. Well, I am another 30-something who, like many, I'm sure that are listening, has probably had to take control of their health at some point. And this has happened to me multiple times throughout my life, from when I was in middle school to early days as a investment banking analyst to even postpartum, just to try to figure out how to feel better. I had symptoms I didn't know how to deal with, and I really took this DIY guess and check approach to health. And the problem with this is it wastes a ton of time, it wastes a ton of money, and most of the time we end up with results that don't really work. And so ultimately, I believe there was a better way. My co-founder now at Rootine believed there was a better way to approach this. We know we have so much more access to information about our bodies than ever before. We have the technology to use that information in a much more effective way. So why not bring that to people? And that's really what we're doing through Rootine. So our main focus is to help people first understand what's going on in their bodies, which we do through our at-home lab tests, and then help them achieve their goals faster through a more personalized approach to nutrition. And today what we do is we have really two different health tracks or two different focuses. The first is everyday nutrition and daily health support, which we do through our precision multivitamin, which is a smart multivitamin formula that is formulated truly for you. So no two formulas are the same based on your health data. And we look at over 100 health data points per member across genetics, lifestyle, blood levels, now hormones, and soon to be wearable biomarkers from things that you're wearing on your wrist, whether it's your Apple Health Watch, your Whoop, etc. We also have our 3 at-home lab tests, our vitamin test, mineral test, and DNA for nutrition test. And then our second kind of focus is stress management. And this is newer to our platform, but of all of the health conditions after daily health support that our members were looking for, stress is number one. This is also such a big topic that's happening given what's been going on in the world. Stress, mental health is a huge concern for so many people in America. And what we're doing is we take this personalized approach that we've developed on the everyday nutrition and daily health support side into stress and built upon it. So we have an at-home cortisol test, which cortisol is your stress hormone. We look at it at 3 points throughout the day, and everyone's cortisol curve is going to be different, which means most of the time it's not optimal, but it's suboptimal in different ways. So you need different approaches to fix it. So after you get your results, you'll have a unique personalized plan across diet, supplement plan, and lifestyle, as well as access to our targeted supplements that address specific stress symptoms, because we all experience stress differently. Some people deal with brain fog, other people are pushed further into mood disorders, some people have trouble with weight management, but it's really unique to what's going on with your stress hormones and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, a lot there to potentially dive into, but all centering around this idea, right, of like, hey, how do we give people better insights, more personalized kind of solutions to helping them feel better? And feeling better could be a lot of the things you mentioned in terms of just like that day-to-day brain fog and performance, but also like athletics or physical activity and kind of so on down that path. Yeah, the overarching kind of trend, right, in the industry is like figuring out how to democratize this like feedback and hopefully enhance well-being and doing that. To this point, just some additional context. When did the company start? How big is the team now? Like maybe some whatever kind of milestones or metrics you would use to describe where you are in the process.
Yeah, we launched in 2019. So it's been, I guess, almost fully 4 years now, which is crazy that we're far into it. We have our team's 15 full time, and we have an additional number of contractors and folks that we work with on top of that, and growing. So we are actively hiring right now for any folks. Check out our job boards. But from other milestones, we have raised 3 rounds. Most recently, our Series A in summer of 2022. So we're growing well, really making an impact on the health of our members, which is our number one goal. So it's excited to see people coming on, staying, getting really excited about our products, asking for more, and really becoming part of this member health journey so that we're supporting them in whatever high performance means to them, whether it's being a better parent, being more productive at work, or getting those gains on the field or at the gym.
Yeah. And you talked about it kind of maybe the spark of this idea and starting down this path, you know, you dealing with some health issues yourself potentially and just figuring out like, hey, why do I feel this way? Which I think does in fact resonate with a lot of people. It's still kind of crazy at this point that given how far a lot of the innovation has come and supposedly like healthcare, it's like most often I find myself sitting around with whether it's my wife, my brother, our friends, and just being like, hey, why do I feel this way? Why will nobody, seemingly no doctor, whoever, like work with me to figure this out? And like, why does it feel like I'm just going in circles about this? So like, again, I feel like a lot of people have that experience. And then you mentioned maybe having a background in like investment banking, it sounded like. So how did you like come to this idea of like, oh, we can solve this through this kind of precision approach to supplementation and now stress? Like, what was that initial kind of spark? And then how did you kind of take and turn that into what the company is today?
Yeah. The kind of how we came up with the idea is twofold, both for myself and my co-founders side of things. But as I was sitting looking at all these different healthcare companies
Mm,
across health tech and health services, there was this wave of innovation that was happening across what we had access to from a individual data perspective, from remote monitoring to technology. And I sat there asking myself, why can't we apply all of this amazing innovation to help people get sick less and help people figure out what's going on with their health better and help them take more control of their own healthcare. And that was really the spark that said, all right, we can actually take what's happening. It's going to get more omnipresent. Like we're going to have greater access to our own biology. We know this. Technology is going to get less expensive. It's going to get more advanced. I mean, we're seeing the advancements of AI just in the past like couple of months. We're not there yet on health, but like that's an example to where we can do this now. We can actually do this and we can take this concept of premium functional medicine concierge care that has typically been reserved for the top 1% of the 1% and bring it more towards more people so that
mm,
every American that has something they're a wearable on their wrist or wants to get to the root of why they're fatigued all the time can do that in an accessible way, but it's still really science backed and personalized. And then kind of layer on my co-founder, he's spent the last 15 years looking at health data points. He's
mm.
a PhD in biotechnology, one of the world-renowned kind of experts in nutrigenetics, and looking at how genetics and other health data points really play next to each other. So it's not just DNA-informed nutrition. It's not just blood-informed nutrition. It's not just wearable-informed nutrition. It's what are all the various things that matter from a comprehensive health perspective and how do all of those work together and interplay with each other to create a much more comprehensive and personalized approach to it. And so take his expertise, my personal experience, and we combined it to really launch this. And the other piece of that is what we're really seeing, and we still see this today, that so many people follow fad diets,
Mm.
trends. They see what their friends are taking, they see what's on Instagram, they see what's on TikTok, and they go buy it. And it's still generic, one size fits all, mass market kind of solutions. One a day, the one a day solution was invented in 1940. It's still one of the top supplements today. So there's just been this general lack of innovation in the space. Whereas we have all of this new access to health data. So why aren't we using it? That was another kind of question that we asked.
Thinking about the kind of options that exist and then maybe like how these ideas spread, right? That you should be on this diet, you should be doing this workout plan, you should be taking these supplements. In many ways, they become very ingrained and it's like health misinformation at this point. And you see them then spreading on whatever TikTok, Instagram, like you said, different influencers post about it, and people think like that's what healthy is. When it comes to like maybe changing the minds of people and helping them start to see things the way that you do in this kind of like inflection point that you're describing, and maybe it's from an education standpoint, maybe it's from a customer acquisition standpoint, like what's kind of working for you and your experience thus far in terms of like starting to change minds and then like really build the business around like, hey, this is how things need to be, especially like kind of going forward as we gain more insight and access to information.
Yeah, it's definitely a great question and something we think about a lot and is continuing to kind of iterate and innovate around because the market's changing
Mm,
rapidly. But overall, this concept of why are you doing something without testing if you need it first actually really resonates with people because especially as we think about what happened with the pandemic, as we think about this concept of mistrust around the health system at large, mistrust around supplementation and wellness, it's like, "Oh, I actually really wanna know, like, what I need and if it's working." And that's something routine can deliver uniquely that a lot of folks can't. Maybe they have a supplement, but what are you doing to see if it's actually working for you or if it's being potentially being harmful for you? For instance, like, for example, there's some genetic variants, the FTE gene, where if you have the variant and you're supplementing or eating additional iron, you're slowly poisoning yourself over time. Most people don't realize that, and that's actually really dangerous. And so, supplementing with no guidance around values, with no change in, all right, there's this 250-pound, 6'5" person taking this product. I'm a like 120-pound female at a very different age, but I'm still taking the same product. That doesn't make sense. So
mm,
it's just these like little tidbits that I think is really helpful. But overall, people are waking up to the fact that they have to take control of their own health. They can access information about their body. They want to understand more information about their body and they want their data to be actionable. So there's all of these wearables, all of this way to get data. Very few people understand actually what to do with it. So there's this like concept of data fatigue that's coming in, and we're making sense of it in a really simple way where we turn it into actionable solutions, personalized plans, and products that you can take every single day that you can kind of dynamically change with you. But it's a simple answer to what's going on with all of this complex data that I'm seeing.
for sure. Yeah, I want to circle back to what that process kind of looks like and entails from the user perspective. But first, just to your point, like I'm someone who, whenever the conversation of like vitamins and supplements comes up, it's like I feel like I've taken all of them, probably too many, and tried them and spent way too much money on them. And like still now I'm like, did that do anything? I don't even know if I should keep taking it because I don't even know if it worked like in the first place. Again, not even to the point of did I need it or what was the appropriate dose, like, or, timing of any of those things, but just like the amount of money and time and potentially harm, right, that I've done without having all of these insights now that you're talking about. So, along those lines, maybe to help people who are struggling with a similar thing or maybe even people who have deficiencies they don't even know about in terms of that like user process, right? You're doing the testing up front, which is important. So I sign up, kind of what happens from there.
Yeah, you sign up and you can access our tests. So we have, as I mentioned, we have the daily everyday nutrition, daily health support tests, which look at vitamin levels, mineral levels, and DNA for nutrition. The DNA for nutrition, to expand on that a little bit more, because some people don't understand this, is basically your genetics play a role in how your body processes nutrients. So for some people, you need more of something. For some people, you need less of something, and for others, something that's great for one person is actually harmful for that person, and that's an iron is a good example there. So we check that. We also look at what's currently going on in your body. From there, based on those data points, we formulate your precision formula for you and deliver it direct to your door. That testing is optional. You don't have to do it. The majority of our members do it because they want to learn more about their bodies and get that baseline health. And then we recommend for the vitamin and mineral test retesting every 3 months based on the clinical advisors that we have. For the stress program, it's similar. It's an at-home cortisol test, which is a spit test. It's hormone testing. And then you get your insights. You get your personalized plan delivered to your dashboard. And then you get recommended targeted supplements based on your unique cortisol curve and symptoms that you're dealing with.
Hey everyone, we'll get you back to the show in just a second. But first, I wanted to tell you about our exclusive PR partner, Jack Taylor. Honestly, this one's a no-brainer. We've known the Jack Taylor team for years. They work with some of the most innovative health and wellness companies. We're talking Whoop, Athletic Greens, Hyperice, and many more. Jack Taylor has an extensive industry network, knows how to work with high growth companies, and really invests in building long term relationships. I know this firsthand because they're Fitt Insider's PR agency, so I can confidently recommend them, and I do all the time. From startups to more established brands, they go beyond pushing product to help companies truly thrive. If you want to learn more, head to jacktaylorpr.com and tell them Fitt Insider sent you. Now, back to the show. And then those, whatever the recommendation might be, shows up probably at my door based on like that subscription. And
Correct.
In terms of awesome, right? Like that we're getting to that place where we're understanding our bodies, we're able to supplement. Part of what this broader conversation is about, right, is like the idea of, yes, personalized health insights, but just like the impact of nutrition in the first place and how that can basically dictate how we feel, perform, all the other aspects of our life. How close, realistic is it that like truly personalized nutrition in terms of what I should be eating and how I should be supplementing, like that's going to become maybe not normal, right? But that maybe the majority of people can have access to that and it's affordable in a way that is truly democratizing this type of like feedback and insights. Is that like, are we close to that? Is it probably further away? Like, do you see yourselves as continuing to advance this conversation down that path, but it's still being, somewhat into the future? Just how do you think about that timeline?
I think we're close. I think it's a year or 2 out for the
Mm,
the early adopters and probably a few more years plus that for more consumers that aren't as invested right now in what's going on in the space. If you think and kind of what that means, right? You're looking at whole genome sequencing, you're looking at all sorts of different data points, you're looking at how are we actually getting access to these data points from a consumer perspective? What's the cost of that? And then who and how are these being analyzed? If you look at a typical doctor and even functional medicine doctors that are trained in this, one person looking at 1,000 data points and delivering like personalized recommendations and diagnostics within like seconds of care is pretty much impossible
mm,
unless you put technology to it. And this is where I think AI and technology and where it's going is potentially really powerful because you're taking not only just those data inputs, but also what's in food, what are people eating, how are we using photos to get information about people eating versus having to input eating. So there's a lot of things that go into that. I think technology can solve, but I think we're still ways away from it being daily everyone's eating to truly personalized everything. But supplementation is easier to do that with. And that's what
sure.
we're doing now. So we are actually delivering 100% personalized, just in time produced supplementation based on hundreds, soon to be many more data points of what's going on in your body and dynamically improving it as your body changes on a quarterly basis.
So you mentioned the recently adding the kind of stress cortisol tracking. In terms of how this evolves from the supplementation to the stress, I imagine that the kind of roadmap and maybe the whiteboard is filled with all the different areas in which you're like, do we start here? Do we take on this aspect? In terms of how you're thinking about solving these various problems, how do you go about determining which is next? And I'm sure lots of different factors, right? But what maybe even is like the beginning framework of like, this is what we're able to do next. And here's how we go about rolling that out to consumers.
Yeah. If you look at the supplementation landscape, our belief is every single thing that you put in your body from a supplement and like diet perspective should be personalized based on what you actually need, what's going on in your biology and what your real-time data is saying. So if you put that in the market, that's a $500 billion market globally. So there is a massive kind of opportunity here. And so whittling it down, yes, is hard. As we think about what's next, we make sure everything's working together. So our stress program actually further optimizes our precision multi. So we're pushing or kind of integrating the hormone data into the algorithm around how we're dosing the precision multi and making sure all the products work together. Two, we're making sure it can be tracked. So as we look at categories, Hydration's an example. We're not in hydration, but that is a category where there's some really interesting innovations happening around how we track electrolytes, how we track hydration. There's a Gatorade sweat patch and kind of that piece of it. So if you're trying to optimize your hydration, are you actually tracking it first? Because that's our core belief that you need to be able to do that. And then really what matters to our members. So our ultimate goal is to help more people improve their health in a really personalized way. And so we start with what are our members really wanting? And stress was a key part of that. There's also a number of other categories that we're looking at and circling that our members really care about and the greater market at large cares about.
For sure. I'm sure you mentioned hydration. Sleep, I'm sure, is high up on that list. Recovery, no shortage of kind of problems to solve when it comes to these various pillars of health that people are thinking about. How do I optimize? How do I make it more personalized? One of the things when you start to kind of dive deeper into this like conversation around supplementation, one of the things we already talked about, right, is like, does it work? And am I taking the appropriate amount? And how do I know? So we kind of solved that with the tracking and personalization. Another issue that's often not talked about is like quality, that the supplements aren't regulated and who knows what's in there. And oftentimes when you actually look at what's in there, either it's not on the label or it's completely different ingredients to some extent, right? That represents an opportunity for you who's like, hey, we can actually do this in a much more certified, kind of clean and a higher quality way. But how exactly, like, do you do that and kind of maintain that standard to ensure that like what people need based on the test, like that's what they're getting?
Yeah, I think that's one of the more exciting pieces about not just what Routine is doing, but if you look at the health and wellness industry at large, is people are focusing much more on quality and sourcing than they ever really did before. So these traditional mass market vitamins that you might see or mass market anything else maybe didn't pay as much attention to quality. You can put that into the food industry as well. There's a huge conversation around what processed food means, but that's an
Yeah.
aside. But what's interesting is that everyone's kind of woken up to it, and so as we think about formulating going forward, science first has always been our approach, data first. So making sure we're starting with ingredients that have actual research around them through to ensuring quality control practices across the board match where they need to be. And as it makes sense, like the additional kind of third party qualifications across those products are really important to us as well. But one kind of funny note is that some of the industry best like certifications can't actually be applied to personalized supplementation yet.
Mm.
So that's something that some people don't really realize. But if you want something truly personalized, the way that the whole industry has been set up is to test for mass market. And so helping push that is something else that we're looking at. What does that mean?
Yeah, right. Kind of like reimagining what that standard even is and potentially
Yeah.
the opportunity to like create it, which is also massive. Along these lines, right? There's like, I'm curious to get your approach because I don't know that there, at least I haven't heard like a good answer on it. So with supplementation, there's like the pushback around what's in it, quality, right? And those standards and how to uphold them. And then there's like X number of experts that say like supplements, you don't need to take them in the first place and they really don't do anything. While on the other end of the spectrum, there's like the kind of new, or I guess in the middle, the nutritional insurance, right? That like clearly we're not getting everything we need. So like it's better to have them than not. And then where you sit, and I think where a lot of things are trending, which is like, well, no, in a one size fits all way, clearly you're not going to utilize these things. So we should be more personalized in how we do it. So recognizing that, like, how do you think about maybe the current idea of supplementation and like this quote unquote like experts say whether or not we need them, and then how you go about kind of like changing minds down that path?
I think the how do you change mind is outcomes. And I think that's what we're getting right more than a lot
Mm,
of mostly everyone else in this space is outcomes first approach. And you need baseline metrics across what's happening in your body, what's happening in your like digital biomarkers, what's happening just from a lifestyle perspective. What are you taking? And then continuous check-in points to see if it's working. You're almost running individual clinical studies on every single individual that's taking them, or like you yourself as the consumer are running the studies to make sure that they're working for you. And that's what matters. So like, does it impact you personally in the way that you're wanting it to, from a results perspective, from a health goal perspective. What I find to be fascinating in the world of nutrition, specifically in supplementation, is we are so drastically underfunded from a research perspective. Most studies don't look at individual biomarkers. I think it wasn't until 2019 that a study at Brigham and Women's in the supplementation world said, oh, we should actually look at genetics, or like we should look at baseline something else before we make this broad base generalized comment. And a lot of the nutrition research that's cited across the board is related to this, I think it was done in the 70s and 80s, middle-aged male doctors, 22,000 of them. And the outcomes from there are cited still today for everyone. And so the experts don't really know because the research isn't there yet for a lot of them, and it really matters on an individual basis. And so that's one of the more exciting pieces about the space we're building in, but also where we are overall as health, is we're going to get so much clearer over the next year to 5, 10 years on what actually matters from a health outcomes perspective across wellness, across medication, across all sorts of interventions, whether it's sick care or prevention, because we're just having this better access to what our individual bodies are saying and what the individual outcomes are versus these like generic one size fits all studies, which is generally what was happening.
And the just both from an individual and kind of like cohort basis, like you're collecting all this data, like you said, to be able to kind of run the tests and say like, okay, what is happening and how do we improve this and what does matter and what are the outcomes, and that actually kind of speaking for itself. You know, it makes me, is we think about that and we think about like all the various wearables, devices, tests, companies that are in some ways like collecting all of this information, and then still, right, like kind of living in silos, like whether it's at that company or whether it's around that device, and certainly not yet connected to healthcare in any way that then we're able to like link these things together. It's a question that, you know, I don't know if we can answer yet, but wondering how you think about it. Cause I ask it to a lot of founders who are kind of building in similar spaces, is like, do we feel like we have to collect all this data, figure it out, do the personalized thing that like we set out to do and improve health outcomes, and then like back into this like health industry where we then like integrate it and hopefully like everybody's willing to play nice and like we can do that? Or is it like, no, we have to like build this completely new thing and figure out how to like operationalize it and run it ourselves because the other thing is so broken? Do you think it like, how do you think about bridging that gap, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, it's a big question, right? Like we are at an all-time low from a believability in our healthcare system across the board. Women's health specifically, but overall, medical gaslighting, complete distrust of physicians, not using the healthcare system in general. When you think about innovation, are you innovating for a system that no one believes in, but is probably going to be there and has the largest dollars to spend on innovations that actually are making an impact? Or do you build something completely new? But building something completely new is very expensive if you are not ever thinking about where 90% of the healthcare dollars are actually being spent working for your technology. So the short answer is I don't know kind of where we're going, but I do know that wellness is going to be more integrated into health. It's already happening. Mental health is already going to be more integrated in traditional health services. There is more outcomes data and research around how nutrition, sleep, movement, mental health actually do impact outcomes for both unhealthy and healthy populations. So I think a lot of the innovations that are happening on the consumer health side can actually answer that for health systems in a way that a lot of innovation hasn't in the past. But I think some hybrid and figuring out how to work together is really the like step one versus completely reinventing the system. I'm in favor of throwing the current healthcare system out and trying again, but that is a massive unbundling of a very long-standing systematic problem that is just getting worse over time and not better.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, right? That like, you know, I've talked to, I think it was the founder of Noom, who was like, his approach was like, we just have to get so big that they can't ignore us. And then if we get so big in terms of like that impact, then they have to like, they'll come to us. And another approach, future, is kind of building like a digital healthcare clinic. And it's like, or forward, excuse me. And it's like, no, we have to rebuild the thing. They've raised $500+ million, and it's a 100-year like roadmap of like, how do we do this? And I think, what you're saying is like wrestling with that same idea of like, clearly it's not working for the majority of people, but like, who picks up the bill and where are the dollars and where, like, how do we put the pieces together? Yeah, I guess on the optimism side, it's like, that's what excites me, right? About the things that you think about, and companies like you and founders like you who are like solving these problems and like continuing to devote the time and energy and hopefully getting like really smart people to work on this healthcare problem. But yeah,
Yeah.
TBD in terms of how it plays out and maybe what that looks like.
And I would add to the new founder's response is, not only do you have to get big enough that they won't ignore you, but you have to get so many proof points that they won't
Mm,
ignore you. The biggest thing in traditional healthcare service businesses is, does it work and is it saving money? And if you can answer those questions in a really clear, compelling way, they can't ignore you. And I think we've seen evidence of this with Parsley is a really good example, where they started consumer only. Then they went into employers. They got more proof points, and now they're in network with Aetna. Clearly, what they're doing is showing outcomes, improving health, and saving people money, or allowing them to spend less money, however they want to see. So the ROI is there. Because at the core, healthcare is a business and they care about the bottom line. And most of them are public companies. So they really care about revenue. They really care about cost savings. They don't necessarily care as much about what the health is, as long as
mm.
the outcomes show the ROI.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I think goes maybe a step further than a lot of companies, maybe in the digital health or, wellness space, having that realization that like, oh no, it's not about like, well, certainly the marketing and the branding and the who the endorsers are in terms of like influencer partnerships, right? But like, how do we take what we're doing now and make that connection to what are the health outcomes, the research, the validation that we have that this thing works? And yeah, I think is going to be the thing that ultimately moves the needle. And whether that's integrating or being acquired by or partnering with, like, yeah, that's where it needs to move.
Yeah. I think there's some really interesting dynamics happening in this space right now, with bigger players that aren't traditionally healthcare looking to get a share of the healthcare pie. I
For
mean, we
sure.
see it with Instacart Health. Amazon just bought One Medical. Like, we've seen Albertsons launch a wellness app. Like, this concept of, where are the pieces that impact health, food, movement, shopping, consumer dollars, and how are we applying that to healthcare? I mean, even CVS bought Oak Street Primary Care. We have the CVS Health Hubs opening. So it's all mixing together in a really interesting way. And I think that, plus a lot of what we're doing on the innovation side with the data piece, us and everyone else in this industry, is going to make for faster innovation, faster improvement, but ultimately probably still some combination of where we are today and something slightly better.
Yeah, it's almost as if there's like, especially from like a retail standpoint, it's like the people are already here. Like they're already coming to this
Mhm.
place. We're already interfacing with them. We already have a relationship. Oh, by the way, they're already buying groceries or prescriptions or whatever from us. And then you layer on this, whether it's an Amazon or whoever that has like this customer obsession and the ability to build a lasting consumer product. It's like, we'll figure out all the other stuff as we deliver on what you said, which is like, can we get people to change their behaviors? Can we give them a better experience? And yes, we have kind of the power or the ability to foot the bill until we do figure out how to integrate in a more meaningful way. So yeah, it's exciting to think about how that plays out. Maybe to that point, a couple more questions before we get you out of here, is you think about maybe what that roadmap looks like. I know just recently launched the kind of stress and cortisol aspect, but is there anything on the roadmap that either you're excited about or that we should look out for in terms of how you continue to advance towards that mission?
No specific category announcements or product announcements, but we are focused on expanding the product suite overall in
Mm.
2023 and really improving how our members are experiencing the insights and kind of the recommendations piece of it, as well as the improvement plan. Another piece which we didn't really talk about with stress is we launched one-on-one consults
Mm.
with a clinician, clinical nutritionist, to dive deeper for a short period of time into your results. So if you have further questions on stress, and now we've opened up to the everyday nutrition and daily health support, we have that on top of it. So we're really layering in a variety of ways to interact with us to get access to that care, depending on the price point, depending on kind of where you are in your health journey, so that we're approaching it. We started really premium, the most precise formula that you could get on the market. And we're now kind of layering on additional services on top of that. That not only supports that premium offering, but also allows for more people to an entry point into our brand.
Yeah, super smart. I think with that, we'll get you out of here on this. For somebody who's interested, they want to give it a try, they want to learn more, where would you point them? What's the best way to kind of get started?
Yeah, our website is routine.co, rootine.co. You can find us on social at routine_co. And if you want to connect with me, find me on Twitter at Rachel S. Sanders.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll get everything linked up kind of in the show notes there. So check it out. And Rachel, I appreciate you making some time to join us today.
Thanks so much for having me on. This was great.
One more thing before you head out, help us spread the word. Take a minute to rate and review the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or share this episode with a friend. And if you like conversations like this, you'll love the Fitt Insider newsletter. We send it every Tuesday. The link is in the description. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you back here next week.